Yeah, we got a problem. The New York Mets, they got a problem. They are not playing good baseball right now, and at the time of recording this video, the Mets are sitting at a 30-33 record, 4th place in the National League East, 8.5 games out of first place, and 3 games out of the wild card. This is an absolute nightmare. They're on a 6-game losing streak, including a 3-game sweep by the Atlanta Braves, in which they blew a lead of 3 runs or more in every single game, and it just feels like nothing can really go right for the Mets. So why is this happening? Why are the Mets underperforming so much this season? In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what the problem is and what's going on with the New York Mets. But before we get going into that, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Click the link in the description and use promo code GNM when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy, and they will match your first time deposit up to $100 absolutely free. There's a couple different ways that you can play fantasy sports through Underdog. First being daily fantasy drafts or even best ball competitions, where you draft a team of players for that day or for that competition period and compete against others for a chance to win some cash prizes. With best ball, you don't have to set your lineup. They set it for you based on whoever performs the best, so there's no need to check after you draft. Or you can play Pick'em on Underdog Fantasy, where you select higher or lower of a given stat for a specific player for a specific game. Tonight, they're running a special where Jimmy Butler, half a point is automatically given to you for higher, which is essentially a free pick. So go ahead, click the link in the description, like I said, and use my promo code GNM when you sign up so Underdog can match your first time deposit up to $100 absolutely free. Thank you to Underdog for sponsoring today's video. Now let's go talk about the Mets. So let's get started with performance, because I think that is definitely the most important thing that is going on right now. The Mets are not getting good play out of the majority of their players. On the offensive side and the pitching side especially, players have not been playing up to snuff. They have been underperforming, and the expectations we had for these guys are just simply not being met. So to get us started off, let's go ahead and look at what the preseason projections had for pretty much all the core players of this Mets roster. And we're looking at the 3 main ones: the bat, Zips, and Steamer. On the offensive side, there are basically only 2 players outperforming their projected expectations for the 2023 season. Those players being Francisco Alvarez and Tommy Pham. Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo are having good years, but technically speaking, are not outperforming their projections. You look at guys like Jeff McNeil, Francisco Lindor, Starling Marte, Mark Canha, Dan Vogelbach, pretty much every other offensive player on the roster, they are grossly underperforming what their projections were during the preseason. And specifically what hurts us the most is guys like McNeil and Lindor. Guys at the top of the order who are expected to be huge parts of this offense like they were the last few seasons, and they're just not cutting it right now. Jeff McNeil's rocking a WRC plus at 104. He's 4% better than league average. And Francisco Lindor is right on league average with a 100 WRC plus. Lindor was unbelievably good last year for the Mets, and we are just not getting that same player at the plate this season. The average has dropped, the on-base percentage has dropped. He's an extra base hit machine, but that's kind of it. And similarly for McNeil, the average dropped from last year, probably unsustainable to hit 330, but there is little to no extra base hit power. I think McNeil has like 2 or 3 extra base hits since April 27th, and this is a guy who's been hitting in the middle of the order for the Mets. It's just simply a formula that is not going to work for the Mets in order to be successful at the plate when a lot of the top of the guys in your order are not performing. And then guys like Mark Canha, Starling Marte, Daniel Vogelbach especially, underperforming on top of the rest of this lineup. It's really hard to play well and win games when the offense is not playing well. It also doesn't help that the pitching side has been just as bad, if not worse. A lot of the blame wants to get put on the offense for the Mets, but truthfully, the pitching has been the biggest problem of all. The fact that the Mets cannot get really any good pitching on a consistent basis from this team is extremely concerning. There is one starting pitcher that is performing similarly or better than what his projections were to start the year, and that is Kodai Senga, a guy who had never pitched in Major League Baseball before. Throw that out the window, and not a single starting pitcher is performing as well as expected this season. Now, I will say Max Scherzer has pitched better of late, but even still, a 3.71 ERA is about 4 to 7 points higher than what all the projection systems had for this year. Justin Verlander just straight up hasn't been good. A 4.85 ERA, granted it's early in the season, is over a full run and a half higher than what was expected. David Peterson has struggled mightily, sent down to AAA. Tylor Megill has not looked good. Carlos Carrasco has struggled. The starting pitching has not been good. And on the bullpen side, while David Robertson, Brooks Raley, and Jeff Brigham have all been great, very much outperforming the expectations, because of the lack of starting pitching, we've been having to rely more on guys like Dominic Leone, Tommy Hunter, and Steven Nagosic, who shouldn't be doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but have to because of the lack of starting pitching going late into the games, and they've underperformed their expectations. Plus Drew Smith and Adam Ottavino, you can really feel the absence of Edwin Diaz, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a second. Those guys have been now thrown into more high leverage situations than they were accustomed to more often, and they have not been performing at the same level they were or were expected to. At the end of the day, the Mets were expected to play better than they are far this season, and almost every single player on this roster has done worse. It's really hard to win games when you're not playing well, and the Mets are not currently playing good baseball. Now, let's step away from the projections a little bit. Let's talk about some just true, hard, factual numbers. Like I said, outside of guys like Alonso, Nimmo, Alvarez, and Tommy Pham, the offense has been bad. The guys like Lindor, Marte, Canna, Vogelback, McNeil, they all need to step up and pick up some of this dead weight that has been the offense. And I think part of the problem is because the Mets prioritize things that just don't really make sense in modern baseball. The Mets seem to prioritize the ability to not strike out. It was something that they wore as a badge of honor last season, and they're continuing to do it this year. Their K rate is 5th lowest in Major League Baseball at 20.3%. And this also kind of ties in with the fact that they're probably a little too patient at the plate. Not a very aggressive team. They see a lot of pitches, and they walk a lot. 9.2% walk rate is the 7th highest in Major League Baseball, which is good from a process standpoint. But here's where it gets concerning. The Mets are 17th in on-base percentage with a 320. So something's not adding up here, and that's because the quality of contact when they do put the ball in play is just not very good. They're 22nd in Major League Baseball in hard hit rate, which is the bottom third of the league. And while they are top 10 in home runs, they have little to no extra base hits outside of the long ball. And it does help when a guy named Pete Alonso has the most homers in the league, and you're getting 10 plus home runs from a rookie catcher in 40 games. The Mets just don't hit the ball hard, and you don't get guys on base. It's really hard to score a lot of runs. Hence why the Mets are a big singles team, and it takes a lot of hits for the Mets to get runs in. There's a clear fundamental issue with the way that the Mets look to attack hitting, and it's being exposed this year because teams don't care that they walk, don't care that they don't strike out. The fact that there's no real punch from this offense is hurting this team, and it is shown in their success. And like I said, on the pitching side, it's been abysmal. Scherzer and Verlander have been signed to be the aces, and they just really haven't been those guys this year. Scherzer has pitched better, so I'm not going to put a lot of the blame on him. In starts made by Scherzer this year, the Mets are 7-3, and after a rough start to the year, he does have a 3.7 ERA, which is better than league average this season. As we know, pitching numbers, the league average ERA is like 4.3 this year. But Verlander has sure not been good, and the Mets are 2-5 in Verlander starts, which is not acceptable. If you look at the Mets records in games not pitched by Max Scherzer and Kodai Senga, they're 18-27. That is a 40% win percentage, which would be the 3rd worst win percentage in baseball. Now, of course, you are taking away the team's 2 best pitchers, but for a team that was trying to compete for a World Series, it's just unacceptable to be performing that poorly on days not pitched by Senga and Max Scherzer. If it wasn't for Kodai Senga, I don't know where this team would be. I have no clue. And onto the bullpen side of things, it seems like the Edwin Diaz injury has finally started to catch up with the Mets. Outside of Robertson, Brigham, and Raley, the bullpen has been bad. The bullpen has not performed well. And part of it is because they're being used more often than they're used to, being used in situations they're not comfortable with, and just not being as sharp as they were last year. The best example I can give you is with Adam Ottavino. Last year, over the full season, to which he was healthy for most of it, Adam Ottavino pitched back-to-back only 11 times. This year, through 63 games, Adam Ottavino has already pitched back-to-back 7 times. It was an absolute privilege to have Edwin Diaz last year. The guy was lights out, put up one of the best closer seasons we've ever seen. But losing 3 to 5 outs every single time the Mets have a lead from that bullpen has been a huge, huge loss. And I know David Robertson gave up the home run to Arcia last night against the Braves, but he's been phenomenal. None of this falls on him. It falls on the rest of this bullpen needing to step up, and it also is kind of compounded by the fact that the starting pitching has not been able to go deep into games, and even when they haven't been effective. The 6th inning feels like an inning where they blow up every single time. To give you some perspective about how bad the starting pitching and relief pitching has been this year, the Mets are currently 21st in relief pitching ERA at 4.32. In terms of starting pitching, they're 22nd in innings pitched by those starters, and they also have the 6th worst ERA among starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. The only teams that they're ahead of are the Boston Red Sox, Kansas City Royals, Oakland A's, Colorado Rockies, and Cincinnati Reds. Not a great group of teams to be better than. There's also a huge lack of depth with this team, like I said. They have little to no farm system left, especially on the pitching side. On the hitting side, they did call up 3 of their big 4, but there is little to no help on the pitching side. Mike Vasil is pretty much the top guy right now. He's crushing AA, and I really hope the Mets call him up soon. 31% K rate, 3.5% walk rate is the 3rd highest in all of AA. But looking at the rest of this roster, it's going to be really hard to find quality arms. They have arguably the worst AAA team in all of minor league baseball. The pitching on that team is definitely the worst in AAA, and you just can't really find any sort of quality arms to help out right now. So what are the Mets going to have to do to fix this problem? They're probably going to have to go out and make a trade, but the issue is they don't really have a great farm system because we've traded away a lot of top prospects for mid to average rentals. Guys like Tyler Naquin, guys like Javi Baez, who we knew we weren't going to bring back. Don't even get me started on trading for Darren Ruff. I mean, J.D. Davis would be nice to have on this team. There's just no farm system depth right now, and I don't really know what their farm system could fetch back in a trade. I don't even know what pitchers are truly available that could help this team. But if it was up to me, here's what the Mets need to do in order to get better and maybe have a chance of making the playoffs this year, because right now, they do feel like a lost cause the way that they're playing. Get aggressive. Get aggressive with prospects, get aggressive with pitching, get aggressive at the plate. This team needs to be a little bit more aggressive. Take a page out of Francisco Alvarez's playbook. The guy's got so much testosterone, it's dripping out of his body. Play with a little chip on your shoulder. It seems like ever since the Mets lost that series to the Braves back in September, it's like they got punched in the face and they're still phased. They're still dazed. They don't know where they are. Play with some confidence. There are good players on this team. Need them to step up and show it. Also, probably need to make some trades. If players aren't performing, you need to find someone who will. Whether that's through trades, whether that's finding guys in the minors. I don't know what it is, but you got to get guys who are here to win and who are going to perform and play them every single day. And for those guys who are playing every single day, they simply need to step up and play better. They are good players. They can perform better. Francisco Lindor can't continue to be a league average hitter for us. Jeff McNeil, same thing. If Dan Vogelback's going to be the DH, he has to swing the bat more. He has to be aggressive. He has to hit for power. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the outcome to be different. If the Mets want a change to happen with this team, with this record, and with this performance, they have to make a change. I think it was Albert Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And right now, that is what is going on with the Mets. They are not a bad team, but they are for sure not the same team that they were last year. Something has to change. Something dramatically has to go different in order for this season to turn around, because the Mets are in danger of the season slipping away. That's my 2 cents on the New York Mets situation. I'd love to know what you guys are thinking down in the comment section below. Let's have a conversation and talk. If you do enjoy this video, it's a little bit different, but I'm trying to make some more content for you guys, a little more conversational, a little more just analytical as well. Drop a like to let me know you like this, as well as subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the content coming at you. Bangers all season long. June's going to be a big month. Follow me on all my social media at GiraffeNeckMarc, as well as if you have made it this far, go check out the podcast that I host for the team, the New York Mets. Yeah, the official team. I host their official podcast, Mets Stuff. That will be in the description as well. Otherwise, you guys know the drill from here on out. YouTube recommends you watch this video. This is my most recent upload, so click through those if you have not yet seen them. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow for another video. Bye.